Alright guys, so this video is going to show you how to make a very simple calculator using C#. This will be a step-by-step process, so if at any point I'm going a little bit too fast, feel free to pause the video and just catch yourself up, alright? So you'll need Visual Studio open to start this calculator and create this calculator. The version that I'm using here is the 2019 version, so depending on the version that you are currently using, your screen may look a little bit different to this, but in any case, somewhere in the screen there'll be a button to create a new project. You need to click that. So this part's very important as well. You need to make sure that you select the correct kind of program we're going to make. So we need to make a console app using C#. Now you can see I've got two different options here for console apps. Again, yours might look a little bit different. You need to make sure you're selecting one with C#. So for me, I can see that this is in C#, just because of the icon above there, it says C#. You can also use the search bar here to search for whatever you want. So I've searched C# here, so I've only got C# program. So as soon as I click the console app with C#, that's what we need to use. Okay, so I'm just going to use this to name my program. I'll just say calculator program. And I've already done this, but this is very important for you guys. If you make sure that you are saving your program, your project, in a place where you're going to remember it is, a good idea would be to put this on OneDrive. So if I go to my OneDrive here, saving it here will mean that you can access it anywhere, which would probably be a good idea. If you want to save it on a pen drive or something, that'll also work. Just make sure you save it somewhere where you're going to remember it is. I'll just pop it in here in my software development folder in calculator program. Perfect. Okay, just going to go ahead and create that. Lovely. Okay, so straight away we're brought to our main page. Now it's put a little hello world in there on the right line. We don't need that. We just get rid of that. I'm just going to create a little bit of space just so I can code in here. Remember, we've always got to stay above these three curly brackets there and below the static void main. Remember, we've always got to be coding inside there. If you've gone outside of there, then you're going to cause yourself issues, all right? Okay, so there's 4 steps here. The first step is to ask the user for the calculation. So what kind of calculation would the user like to do? You then need to ask the user for their first and, if needed, their second numbers for the calculation. The third step then is to actually perform the calculation that they want. And the fourth is a very important step. You need to repeat this process until the user actually wants to exit. So if we start with that first point, asking the user for the calculation. So obviously they need to pick a choice, but the more important part is we need to give them those choices. We need to ask the question in order for them to answer the question. So we start off with a very simple system.console.write line. And we're just going to simply ask them, what calculation would you like to perform? And always remember those semicolons at the end of your lines. Very easy to forget those. Okay, so not only have I asked them what calculation would you like to perform, I'm also going to go ahead and give them the options that I want them to pick from. So I'm going to say number 1 will be add. Number 2 will be subtract. Number 3 will be multiply. Number 4 then will be, very obviously, division. Okay, so we're going to have 2 more options here, which are going to vary from the 4 that we just added. We're going to also have square and square root. Now, if you remember correctly, these will differ from those because the square and square root only needs 1 number to perform that calculation. So keep that in mind because that will become quite important in a little bit. Okay, so our 6 options have been given to the user. I'm actually going to put another system console.write line here just to break up the code from the user's perspective. Okay, so once we've asked the question, we need to wait for the answer or give the user the opportunity to answer. Now, to do this, we need a variable to remember that choice that they've made. So I'm going to just go above what I started writing here, I'm going to make a little bit more space, and I'm going to start putting all of my variables that I'm going to use at the very top of the page so I know that they're there. So we're going to need a string for the choice, and we're going to need to give it a name. So I'll just say choice. And for now, I'm going to set it as none. No choice has been made. Okay, now we've got our variable ready. We can go underneath and wait for that answer. Wait for the answer to the question we've asked. So we're just going to say choice, if I spell correctly, choice equals system.console.readline. Perfect. So what's going to happen now is, if we play this, here you can see that the question has been asked, and it's waiting for me to give an answer. Now I can give an answer, so I'm going to say number 2 for subtract, but what's going to happen is the program is just going to stop. There we are, the program stopped. Now that program is stopped because obviously there's nothing that happens after that. I've given the answer, and as far as the program is concerned, that's it, it's done. So we need to actually make the rest of the program. So that's part 1 actually done. We've asked the user for the calculation, perfect, and we can get an answer for it. So now we need to ask the user for their first and second numbers, again, if needed. So if we pick square and square root, we actually only need one number. And that's quite important for our next part here. So 6 choices, and we're going to use 6 different if statements, or else if statements. So if we just start straight away, and we'll say if the choice is equal to 1, and remember that 1's got to be in quotations because we've actually entered that 1 as a string up here. So if the choice equals 1, then do this. I'm going to go ahead and create all of the if statements ready. So I'm going to say else if the choice is equal to 2, then do this. I'm going to keep going. Else if the choice is equal to 3, from this statement. Okay, so we've got options for 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to be a little bit lazy here, and I'm going to copy the further 2. I'm just going to replace that to 5 and 6. So by this point, you should be able to ask the user for an input for the calculation, and then have 6 different empty if statements ready to go. So if you're not at this point yet, pause the video and make sure that you've got this code on your screen. So that is the ability to ask for the calculation and then these empty if statements. If you've got that, awesome, we're going to continue. So once we code one of these, particularly one of the first 4, we've got the code for the next 3 really. So we'll have add, subtract, multiply, and divide. The code for those is very similar. So let's start. If you remember, the second part was asking the user for their first and, if needed, second number. So again, we're just going to enter system.console.writeLine, and we're going to ask them for their first number. So what is your first number? Now, when we ask the question, we've got to actually wait for the response. And again, we're going to need a variable to save this number. So back up to the top we go. And just underneath our choice, we're going to create 2 more variables. The first is going to be an int called number1. I'm not going to actually put a number in there yet. And we're going to make another one called number2. Now, those of you who are paying a bit more attention might know that an integer isn't really the best choice for a calculator because they can only store whole numbers. But for the purposes of this this very simple calculator, we're just going to go ahead and just use the integers. Okay, so we've got 2 variables ready, one for the first number and one for the second number. So we're just going to go ahead and say number1 equals. Now the obvious way that you think would do to do this would be to do system.console.readLine, but this isn't going to work. So right away we get a red line here. Now if you read that, it says that string can't be converted to an int. Basically, that's what that's telling me. And that's because we have saved number 1 as an int because we need to use it as a number. And when we type anything in, it naturally gets stored as a string because we're typing text in. So what we need to do before that can be saved is just before the system.console.readline, we need to convert it to an integer. So convert dot to int 32, then open a bracket and put that system.console.readline in. So it should look like that. So number 1 equals convert.toInt32, open bracket, system.console.readline, and then you've got an open close bracket and then another close bracket followed by your semicolon. I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see that line properly. This line here. So that's quite a big line, so make sure you get that one right. If you need to pause the video right now to get that line right, go ahead. Okay, so after we've written that line, it's just a case of asking for the second number. So I'm going to go ahead and say system.console.writeLine, and what is your second number? Same thing again, we're going to say number 2 equals, and let's practice this again, convert dot to int 32, open that bracket, and then we're going to simply put system.console.readline, open close brackets, and a semicolon at the end. Perfect. So now we've asked the user for their first number, we've read it in, we've asked the user for their second number, and we've also read that in. Sorted. Now that is almost, well, that is part 2 done for the addition side of things. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly do part 3, and then we're going to copy this code essentially into choice 2, 3, and 4. So part 3 is very simple. Now for this, we just need to say something like your system.console.writeLine to start with. We're just going to say your calculation is, and then we're going to paste the number below. So no quotations needed here. We're simply going to say number 1 plus number 2. So this should say your calculation is number 1 plus number 2. Now it's not going to print out the words number 1 plus number 2. It's going to just print out the actual number 1 which you saved in here, added by the number 2 that you saved here. And that's done. That's perfect. Now if you've got that running properly, let's give it a little test. So remember, only our addition is working correctly here. So I'm going to say 1. Perfect. What's your first number? I'll say 2. And then your second number, I'll say, let's say 8. Now, when I press enter, this program is going to pretty much give me the answer and shut down. So there, your calculation is 10. 2 plus 8 is 10. Perfect. It's working. So let's have a look. Number 2, 3, and 4 all work very, very similarly to this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this straight away and put it straight in here, because this is the exact same code needed. Now there are more efficient ways to do this rather than copy and pasting the code, but again, for the purpose of this very simple calculator, we're not going to worry about that too much. I'm also going to take this actually. Now the only line of code that's going to be different here is the actual calculation. So instead of doing number 1 plus number 2, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to do number 1 and use the difference instead of plus, minus number 2. There you go. So again, if you need to pause the video just to make sure that you've got that section, that if statement correct, please do so. I'm just going to give it a little test. It's always a good idea to test these after every time you do one of these choices. So number 2, first number, we'll do 8, and we'll do the second number as 2. Calculation is 6. So 8 minus 2 is 6. Perfect, that's working. So again, I'm going to copy that code, pop it in number 3, And this time, again, this line is going to be different. System.console.writeLine. Now, number 1, and what lots of people do, they put a little x in here. Number 1 times number 2. But again, that's not going to work. So in coding, in programming, we don't use the x to multiply numbers. We use the asterisk, which is shift 8. So we make that little star, and we do number 1 multiplied by number 2. Let's give that a run. So number 3, which is going to be multiplied, we'll do 3 times 5. Calculation is 15. 3 times 5 is 15. Awesome, that's working. Okay, last one of the easy ones. Okay, system.console.writeLine. Now this one's a little bit more simple. Number 1, and the divide sign is just the /. So number 1 divided by number 2, as you would write it if you were physically writing this out. Okay, last time, let's have a look. So let's test it. Divide is number 4. So what's my first number? Let's say 10. Second number, 5. So 10 divided by 5. Calculation is 2. Perfect. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. The choices 1, 2, 3, and 4 are working correctly. Now 5 and 6. These differ just a little bit, particularly 6. Now square and square root. If you're going to square a number, you only need that one number. So we're not going to bother asking for this second number. So I'm just going to copy this code over. Actually, I'm going to write the code. So system.console.writeLine. And I'm just going to say, please enter your number. I'm not going to bother saying first number because when we're squaring something, again, we're only going to need that one single number. And again, number 1 equals convert. Remember that convert is very important to int 32. Then system.console.read. Nope, that's convert. System.console.readLine. We'll close those brackets and put that semicolon on the end. So we've read in that first number. Now squaring a number is essentially timesing the number by itself. So we can just do that very quickly. So system.console.writeLine. Your calculation is there you go. And like I said, we're just going to times those numbers together. So number 1 multiplied by number 1. So let's give that a go. So we're going to pick square, enter your number. Notice how it says enter your number, not your first number. And we're just going to do, let's do 5. Now 5 multiplied by 5 should be 25. Perfect, there we go, it's working. Now we've used the easy option there, we multiplied that number by itself. When we're doing a square root, we haven't got that luxury. So this one's actually a little bit different. So we're just going to say, and I am going to be lazy this time, I'm going to copy these 3 lines. I'm going to pop that there. It's not much more difficult, we just need to do system.console.writeLine. Then in the brackets, this time, instead of doing a calculation, we're going to let the program do it for us. So we're going to say math.sqrt, which stands for square root, and then in brackets, simply put number 1. And that's that done. So what that's doing is it's going to use that that math function to square root the number that you've specified. So if I just give that a quick test, let's do number 6. And let's do a nice easy number, the square root of 9, which should be 3. There we are. Also, the calculation is 3. Okay, so that is part 1, which is asking for the calculation. Part 2, asking for the first and if needed the second number. And part 3, which is performing the calculation, all complete. We've done all 3 of those parts. Now there's just one more calculation to do. Sorry, not calculation, one more step to do. And that is to repeat this until the user actually wants to exit. So under here, just to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to create a system.console.writeLine, an empty one, followed by Let's be lazy. Another one which says, please press, that's how you spell press, press enter to continue. Followed by another blank one. So this is going to break up the code a little bit. So if you look here, actually, let me just stop that quickly. Because there's no point asking them to press enter to continue without actually stopping the program, halting that program. Remember, to halt that program, we just do a quick, easy system.console.read line. This is going to wait for the user to input something, but it's not going to save it anywhere. So it's just going to wait for that user to press enter to continue the program. Okay, so let's go through a calculation. Let's do a nice, easy multiplication. First number, we'll do 5 times 10, which should be 50. Awesome. Calculation is 50. And then please press enter to continue comes up. When I press enter, right now the program stops. I'm actually going to add a little ... there to make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, so we need to loop this program round. We need to repeat the program. And this is actually quite an easy step. So all we need to do is go straight up to the top. Here we go, straight back up to the part where we ask the user to specify that calculation. I'm actually going to give the user a 7th option. So we're going to say system.console, if I can type properly, system.console.writeLine. And we're going to say press E to exit. And that's quite important. So what's going to happen here is this choice variable is going to record whatever we put in there, which we know. It's going to record 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or potentially E now. Now, none of these choices tell you what to do with an E. But we're going to code that in ourselves now. The first thing to do, though, is above the actual calculation here, so above this big section which we said, please enter a calculation, and below the variables, so in this little gap here, we're going to write while choice exclamation mark equals, and then in quotations E, and then open a curly bracket, but just delete that closing one, so you'll have a statement which is open here. Now what this means is, while the variable choice is not equal to the letter E, run this code. So what we're saying is, as soon as the user enters this E, it's not going to run this code. So let's scroll down. I need to go right to the bottom of your program. Here we go. Right here. So this is important where you put this next little bit. You're going to want to put a closing curly bracket underneath this. So as soon as I press this this closing curly bracket, it'll shift all my code to the right. There it goes. So I can actually get rid of this little bit of space here. Now this is specified. Actually, I'm going to put a bit there. All of this code after the while statement. Find the while statement. There we are. All of this code will only run if the variable choice is not equal to E. Now we specify this E here after the choice has been made. So all of this code is still going to run once when we enter E, but no calculation will run. So what we can actually say at the end is else system.console.writeLine. Thank you for using the calculator. Perfect. Let's give this a go. So here we are. Let's zoom in so we can actually see this properly. Okay. So what calculation would you like to perform? 1 for addition, 2 for subtraction, 3 for multiplication, 4 for division, 5 for the square, or 6 for the square root. So for now I'm going to say add. First number, let's do 4 plus 6. Calculation is 10. Press enter to continue. Now what should happen? Brilliant. Okay, I press enter and we've been brought back to this calculation screen. So the old calculation is still there, but now we've been given the option to perform a new calculation. So I'm going to say multiply this time. First number, let's do 5 times 2. Again, the calculation is 10. One last one. Okay, so this time we'll do a square. So please enter your number. Let's do 8. So 8 squared is 64. Awesome. Press enter again. Back here. Okay, I'm done with calculations now. So let's see. If I enter E, the program should close. There we are. It says, thank you for using the calculator. Please press enter to continue. And hopefully, there it goes. Program shuts down. So there you go. That is a very simple calculator program written in C#. Now, there's a couple of issues with this, which realistically would cause or could potentially cause issues. For example, what happens if someone enters something in here which isn't expected? What if they enter number 8 or a word? Then that's going to cause issues. What if they enter text into these number categories? What's going to happen? The program's likely going to crash. Plus, if you do something like, let's do a multiply, and we do 3.2, straight away it crashes. So a calculator realistically should be able to have decimal numbers, but we've used integers. Like we said, we already knew this was going to be an issue at the start. But it's only a simple calculator. It's a very simple piece of code. And it gives us the opportunity to look back and say, yes, this has got issues. And we can comment on those issues, especially for the later parts of assignment 3. We can then review this and see that we're aware that improvements can be made. But that is the end of this tutorial now. Again, if you feel like you have fallen behind, please go back, rewatch little bits if you need to top yourself up. And you can do that. You've got the advantage of using this video as quickly or as slowly as you need to. Okay, but that is the end of the video. Hopefully that has sorted that for you and you guys have been able to make a nice, simple calculator there.